Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we'd continue with another mixed haul because I just keep buying and buying and buying stuff, and I just don't have the time to go through everything. I've been trying to watch and listen to all the stuff before I review it, but um, yeah, it's starting to pile up pretty high. So I thought maybe I'd just get rid of some stuff that I already know about, or that I can get through quickly, and I'll keep the good stuff that I know is good that I haven't, let's say, listened to or watched, and or um, or I haven't seen in a while, and I'll just go through stuff that I have, kind of idea. All right, so it's going to be CDs, there's going to be books, there's going to be movies, there's going to be a whole bunch of different stuff. All right, so let's see how much I can get through in a reasonable amount of time here. All right, so let's see, let's do some movies first. All right, so we got the Tigger movie. Do you remember the Tigger movie? It's quite fun, quite fun. It's where Tigger goes looking for his family, and then he realizes his family is just already all around him, right? Because family comes in all different shapes and sizes, right? So, uh, I think if this is Disney's ode to, let's say racially diverse families, maybe you have like a black person and an Asian, or maybe an Asian and a white person, or whatever, and they have kids, or maybe you have a gay couple adopting some kids, or all these kind of blended families. And I think it may be uh, Disney's ode to um, that type of family, and its acceptance, right? So it has a message in it. A lot of people are complaining that I've seen online about Disney going quote unquote woke. I don't know what to think about that, but it seems that they're losing business because of it. Now, I went to Disney World just a few weeks back in July, and it was pretty busy. If we didn't have, the VIP type of pass, man, we'd be waiting so long. I don't know how people can do it. We'd be waiting in lines for such a long time, like so in some of the places, in an hour or more, right? So, but we had that VIP pass that you could get through, and then we hardly waited at all, which is kind of when you see everybody waiting in this big line, you just walk by everybody, right? Um, and you go on the ride before them. It's kind of is this fair? Is this equal? I mean, you are paying more money or whatever, but Disney is making billions off that stuff. So, anyways, but what they do make is great animated films, and this is one of them. All right, so this is the Tigger movie. The Tigger movie. You haven't seen it? What's up next? Oh, and if you go across the pond to Japan, um, across the Pacific to Japan, and you get this studio, and Disney ended up joining up with this studio to put out this series of Blu-rays and DVDs, right? Of all the Studio Ghibli films. This one is Ponyo. Basically, this is what this is a Japanese version of the Little Mermaid, right? Basically, Ponyo is like a fish or whatever, and she joins up with a little boy, and she's trying to become a human. And anyways, it's quite an entertaining film. They updated it, and used more contemporary actors to do the English voiceover parts. But I'm not sure if you're the type who like it or not, or you find it irrelevant. But there are some Japanese anime films that are better watched in Japanese language with the English subtitles than they are listening to the modern, voices, the dub voices, or whatever. Now, there is a good argument for listening to it just in English because it's much easier, and plus it's cartoons, right? It's not real life, where you get that person talking like, and then you hear the voice come out, and it's an English voice, whatever. It just doesn't. It's incongruent, basically. You don't get that incongruency as much when you watch an anime and you're listening to it in English. Um, but sometimes the emphasis is much better if you listen to it in its original language and do the English subtitles. But if you can't handle English subtitles, just do the English version of it, right? Um, Quite a good story. Their best though is Grave of the Fireflies. If you can find that, watch that. Just be prepared of being extremely depressed after finishing watching it, but it is a great film. All right, so that's Studio Ghibli. All right, let's do a decade. So this is the definitive compilation disc for Neil Young's work. All right, it's called Decade. Basically, is all of his early stuff. All right, you get see 16 on this one and 19 on this one, and it has all of his great songs from the 60s and 70s. Right, so you got what do we got here? Heart of Gold, Old Man, Ohio, Soldier. Just some of the few of them of his great Cinnamon Girl. Just Southern Man. They're all here. So if you really like Neil Young stuff, but you don't want to go out and buy like 10 of his albums or whatever to get all his great music from the 60s and 70s, Decade is a good way of doing it because it's actually three. It was originally, I think, it was 3 LPs, and then they condensed it onto 2 CDs. So very good stuff if you like Neil Young. All right. What else? Okay, I've picked this up now. Pick this for up for PS3. It's Grand Theft Auto 5. All right. Um, I don't sell a lot of video games, but there are certain titles that I know will sell very well, and GTA is one of them. All right, even on a PS2, you can sell it usually. The PS2 versions of it. People like to collect all the different versions for it. And PlayStation is the easiest, console disc to sell, right? So every once in a while I'll come across in my wanderings some uh, video games that I know I could probably resell pretty easily, and this is one of them. So I picked it up. I found it for like $3.99. Probably be able to sell this for maybe $15 to $20, right? So so that's Grand Theft Auto. Now, would I play this myself? No, I mean that's I don't know. It's like just a bunch of criminals running around shooting stuff, and get into some interesting situations, and that mild sexual assault, and anyways, it's a bit much for me. Let's put it that way. All right, what else? Let's do some books now. All right, we got Madame de Lafayette with Princess de Clèves. All right, this I picked up obviously because it's a Oxford World's classic. All right, so I have not read it, but these sell pretty easily, so this is the reason why I picked that up. All right, and so do the Penguin Classics, even though it's not the most recent version of the Penguin Classic. All right, but this is a Patronus and Seneca's two works. Ancient stuff is really good to read. If you really want to know history, especially Western history, Penguin Classics are really good to pick up the old stuff. Right, here's another example. There's Aristophanes, 3 plays. Lysistrata, the Archer, ignorant intellectual, the Acher, Acharnians, the Acharnians or Acharnians, and the Clouds. I've read the Clouds and I've read Lysistrata. Both plays are extremely good. I have not read the middle one, but these are the Penguin Classics, and you should, if you like reading, you should get into more classic stuff because this is where everything comes from, right? And here's another Ernest Hemingway's. He sells really well. Just have or have not. All right, so this one is set in the 1930s during the Great Depression. But I picked it up because this is the Arcturus collection. They're the cheap books that you can pick up for $6, $7 at your local bookstore. The one near my place has them on the table, and they're all like, 2 for $8 or $6 each or whatever, and all the classic literature titles. Right? I usually block them all together, put 10, and sell them for $30. All right, so that's Ernest Hemingway, one of the great American authors. They have one of the great philosophical works put out by Cambridge, and that's John Locke's 2 treatises on government. The second treatise is the one that you really want to read. The first one is okay as well. This is a critical edition in Cambridge History of Political Thought. You got a whole like library full, if you want to collect them, of these blue covered titles, right? And greats in philosophy. It's basically Locke's version. Like if you're going to read political philosophy, Locke is one of the guys you're going to read. You're going to read Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You're going to read Thomas Hobbes. You're going to read, Machiavelli. You're going to read a few others, all about what is the best way to form government. Plato's Republic would be another one. Aristotle's Politics, maybe. Um, all these books that go about what is the best way to organize a state to make it fair and equal and so on and so forth, right? So this is his version of it, and it's an extremely good read if you have not read it. All right. So that's John Locke's Two Treatises of Government. We got George Eliot's Middlemarch in a Broadview edition. Now these Broadview editions, these are Canadian editions of classics in literature and other subjects, but mostly it's literature. And it's a really good critical study of the title that they're doing in this, right? And they Broadview has a great library of more obscure stuff as well as more main. This is more of a mainstream book, but they'll use these ones, and then they'll put out some ones that are from let's say early black authorship or the voices that you don't really hear. They've been published, but they're not really as popular or mainstream, but they're worthy reading, right? And they're usually attached to some sort of university course of some sort, and Broadview will issue a lot of those. So if you see this spine, this thing, pick the book up. You're never going to go wrong with reading any Broadview title. All right. So, and this is a very nice brand new edition of Middlemarch by George Eliot. All right. What else here? Okay, here we got one of Steinbeck's greatest novels, and that's East of Eden. All right, it's the second copy I picked up recently. I have the previous one as well, and it's I don't know. You could argue. I like Of Mice and Men by him. It's a shorter. It's a novella, whatever. But if you're going to really sink your teeth into Steinbeck, this might be the book that you should read. This might be the one that will just blow you away by his writing style and his ability to tell a story. All right. So that's East of Eden. What else should we do? Uh, I found this as well, a one-volume hardcover edition of The Lord of the Rings. All right. So it has all three books in one volume, and I found it for $4, believe it or not. So I'm going to put it in a Mylar plastic like this. See how nice and shiny it is when you put it in Mylar. This this plastic, you can get it from. I usually get mine from Brodart. They usually have big rolls, of like 900 feet of it or whatever, and it'll usually last me a couple of years when I'm putting. See how nice that looks when you put and it really protects the dust jacket, right? So so I found this for $4. I'm going to put it in a dust jacket and uh, sell it. What I'm looking for, I think Eastman Press has a really nice leather-bound version of this, but it's like in the hundreds of dollars. So I haven't been able to find it at a reasonable cost yet. But that's the one that I'll probably pick up if I ever pick up this. Um, I prefer The Hobbit, reading The Hobbit over this. Every time I'm going, oh, let's read some Tolkien, I'll end up picking up The Hobbit and reading The Hobbit and avoid this. I don't know why, but it's more difficult to read than The Hobbit. This is because there's just so many characters in it that you have to follow. All right, so that's Lord of the Rings. What else do we have here? So much stuff. All right, so we got two French philosophical works. We got Jean-Jacques Rousseau. We got René Descartes. Two of their more famous works. These are in French. I will pick up paperback versions of really good titles of Canada's bilingual country, right? English and French. So we do read books in French, but mostly it's English that people read in, but there is a market for French novels or French literature um, in French of French authors, right? So basically, I will if I find like I'm not going to pick up something, let's say by Stephen King that's translated into French and try to sell that. I'll sell the original English version of that book, or two treatises of government by Jean Locke. I'm not going to pick up a French translation of that. I'm going to pick it up in the original English because that's what everybody will read it in Canada. But I will pick up, let's say, Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Pensées. I can't. What was it? Well, here's one here. It's called "La Rêverie du Promeneur Solitaire." All right. and Descartes' règle pour la direction de l'esprit. All right, so um, uh, I will pick up French authors in the original French text because English-speaking Canadians who also speak French will read um, French authors in French before they'll read them in English translation, and obviously all French-speaking Canadians will read French authors in the original French text rather than English translation because it's originally how they came out, right? So, but I will not pick up, let's say, English or German or other authors translated into French because um, those are less popular sales, right? So, all right, so we got that. And here's one of the greatest books on psychology that you'll ever read, and that is Viktor E. Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. This is he's a Holocaust survivor. All of his family was killed, if I remember correctly, in the Holocaust, and then he came out with his book on search for meaning in a cruel world, and the psychology behind this. You really need to read this book. This book will blow your mind. All right. If you're going to only read, let's say, one psychology book, you should pick up this one or maybe Freud's works, whatever. Actually, who probably uh, Jung, Carl Jung. Read his biography. That's another one that maybe you should read. All right. So Man's Search for Meaning. All right. Extremely, extremely good book. I can't recommend it enough. All right. Then we got one of the largest novels ever written, and that's War and Peace by Tolstoy. That's basically a philosophical work, a historical work mixed in with a fiction work. So it's kind of like three books in one almost, and it was extremely difficult to read because you're going to be spending weeks reading this book. It's such a large book, but if you want to read Russian literature, this is one of the books you'll need to read, right? So I attempted it and failed. All right, so that's War and Peace. What else? Oh, this one's an interesting one. These are my words, and this is a Dear Canada. These are my words, and this is by Violet Pashins, uh, and this is basically a diary of her experiences in residential schools in Canada. Basically, if you're American, you don't know what the residential school system was set up by the government through the Roman Catholic Church to quote unquote, let's say, civilize the Indian or civilize the native Canadian, um, take them off the reservations, bring them into a school, and educate them in the Western and do it forcefully if need be. So what would happen was you'd have a little girl or a little boy on the reservation with their parents, but during the school year, that 9 months or 10 months during the school year, they're taken off the reservation, they're brought to a school, and they live there for 10 months out of the year, and then they go back to their parents, at the end of the school year. So basically, they're away from their parents like 80% of the year, right? So, and some brutality and some interesting things happen there that are, a stain on Canadian history. Let's put it that way. And this is a first. Now, if you people always deny things all the time because sometimes things are, let's say, overblown. Okay, like put out of proportion for a political reason, right? Um, you know, uh, turn people into demons. Therefore, you can persecute them or push an agenda. Then there's other times when no, not so much. So you'll have Holocaust deniers, but then read any literature about that period of time and all the evidence that's there to show that it actually happened. There you go, right? So this would be another version of it. Get it from the horse's mouth, as they would say, from first-hand accounts, and you have to believe them. You think everybody that has a first-hand account of an experience in a residential school is lying, for a political agenda? No, I don't think so. All right, so there have been some um, natives who have said that they went through the residential school system and it actually was beneficial, but so many of them said it was a detriment. It screwed them up psychologically. They had mental illnesses because of it, alcoholism, and so on and so forth. Early deaths, suicides, and so why not read it firsthand account? And this is one of the firsthand accounts of the residential school system in Canada, put forth by the Roman Catholic Church. All right, so these are my words, dear Canada. These are my words. What else do we have here? We have Agatha Christie's Peril at the End House. All right. Um, out of all the mystery writers, Elmore Leonard sells. There's a few of them, but nobody sells as good as Agatha Christie. Everybody loves Agatha Christie. You're into mystery novels, especially the Poirot series of books, which are all right there. All right. Henri Poirot is her most famous. Is it Henri Poirot? Is her most favorite? Hercule. So Hercule. Why do I keep thinking it's Henri? All right. Hercule Poirot is her most famous quote-unquote detective in many of her novels. And every one of her novels is extremely good. They're really, really entertaining to read if you have not read them. Now we got F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, his most famous and probably his best work, about that solitary guy back in the 1920s. Um, uh, quite good, and this is part of the gray version. They have the white cover with the penguin. It says Penguin Classics down there. It's a gray version. These are popular sellers as well. What else? Let's do some CDs. All right, what do we got here? We got Daft Punk. All right, very good band. If you have not listened to them, I have not listened. I need to listen to Thrice before one of Belle and Sebastian's early EPs. All right, that's cool. This is one of the greatest albums of all time. If I was to list the greatest albums of all time, that Jeff Buckley's Grace would be one of them. His version of Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, is the greatest version ever done, even better than Cohen himself has done it. Lilac Wine and other um, um, songs on this album are just stunningly good, and the emotional impact of them ends up even being, doubled or whatever, knowing about his early death, right? And then you have a live, one of his live albums. So there's not much that Jeff Buckley has out. Grace is basically there's only great album, and you'll have other things that have been put out after his death or live concerts that he's put on. That's probably his best live concert. So you get the two CDs in one package. All right. So if you have not listened to, go on Spotify, go on iTunes or YouTube or whatever, and put in Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley and listen to that song. Don't tell me that doesn't give you shivers down your spine. All right. So that's Jeff Buckley. What else? We got a Joni Mitchell album. I have not listened to this album, so I can listen to it and I'll review it later. Same thing with Opera Sauvage by Vangelis. Vangelis is one of the greatest electronic artists of all time. This Greek man did the soundtrack to the Blade Runner movie, and that is one of my all-time favorite soundtracks. And we got here Stadium Arcadium by Red Hot Chili Peppers. I picked this up because this is one of the few Red Hot Chili Peppers albums I never really listened to in its entirety, and I wanted to listen to it, even though I'm not a huge fan of theirs. Right? Anything else that I should go through here um, that I've listened to? Oh, here, let's do this one. All right, so here's Oh What a Feeling. All right, a vital collection of Canadian music. All right, so this is a 4-disc. There's three packages of this. There's the first one that's a red one. Then there's this one, I think, is the third one. Then there's one in between. And basically, what it was the first one came out and was so popular, basically put in on 4 discs some of the greatest songs ever in Canadian music history, related through the Junos, which are like the Grammys of Canada, right? The Juno Awards, right? So you get all these Juno winners, and they put them all on 4 discs. And then it was such a popular thing that they did it again, and then they did it again, and this is the third version of it. All right. Don't know if you can see that all well. It's called Oh What a Feeling, a vital collection of Canadian music. All right. So if you see this in any of its versions, any of its 3 versions, pick it up. You're going to get the best and most popular of Canadian music over Canada's music history. All right. So that's really good. Anything else should I do? What else should I do here? Um, let's see here. I got more music, but I need to listen to it before I. Okay, here's something that I'll do. All right. So remember I talked to you about there's 3 high-end book styles that I'll collect. Uh, um, these are leather-bound editions, and they're of books that I've read. All right, so I really like to get a really nice copy of a book that I've read. So let's say George Orwell's 1984. I'll go out searching for a leather-bound edition or a really nice hardcover edition of it to put it in my my library as a keepsake because I read that book and I really enjoyed it. Let's say, um, and I go about. So there's three of them that the high-end ones that I search for. One is the Easton Press. The other one is the Franklin Library. Those are two leather-bound companies that create leather-bound edition of great works, right? And then the third one out of England is called the Folio Society, and they're a hardcover rather than leather-bound, and they have like box sets of books where you have one or two volumes, and then they'll put it in a slipcase, a cardboard slipcase, really nice slipcase to protect them. And the books are really, really high-end books, really nice pictures, really nice artwork and bindings and everything. And here's a good example of one. So here's the Greek Myths. All right, the Greek Myths by Robert Graves. If you're going to read about all the Pegasus and all the gods and all the myths around you know uh, Greek mythology or whatever, this is the book you should read. All right, it's called The Greek Myths by Robert Graves. All right, and it's 2 volumes, and it's in a see how it's in a nice cardboard um, protector box. All right, so slip cover, as they say, or no, not slip cover, slip case. All right, now look at that. Look how beautiful that is. All right, these are hardcover editions. Very, very, very nice. The artwork on them is awesome. All right, the pages, high-end pages, and basically, it's such a beautiful edition. It's like a keepsake that you can keep. So I've read this, but I already have this, um, and this is a volume I found in a thrift store for $7.99. So this is like probably a $50. You can probably sell this for $50, right? So once I got it, I put it in a plastic bag. I'm not going to seal it in the plastic bag until I take pictures of it for the ad and selling it. So, um, but until then, I'll put it in a plastic bag to protect it from dust and damage and stuff, right? So that's a Folio Society. That's what the Folio Society books. I have 2 more. I found these other 2 um, for $3.99 each. This one is Anthem for Doomed Youth. All right, nice cardboard box set. You pull out. What's that? There's a man, soldier at a grave, right? All right. This is probably a book about World War One or World War Two. I'm not sure exactly. Poets of the Great War, so the First War, World War One. All right. So it basically is a book of poetry from soldiers from World War One. All right. It's extremely, and it's done in green, like green beret green, like uniform green. Pages are all in green rather than white. It's a really nice edition. So there we go. And protect it in a plastic bag. And the third folio that I found, also for $3.99, is this nice red slipcase with a white book, and it is Eileen Powers' Medieval Women. All right, there's a nice plate on it, right? Really beautiful edition. All right. Really nice paper stock, really nice photographs and images and paintings and everything else you get on folios. They really are. People just collect folios just because they're folios. It doesn't matter what the title of them are, right? Just like putting them on display on shelves or whatever, make a room look really classy and whatever, right? So I sell these ones for $20 probably, maybe 25 depending. Oh. So those folios, and then I found some more of the Everymans that I collect. The ones that started in 1992. If you listen to any of my other videos, I have a Room with a View and Where Angels Fear to Trade by E.M. Forster. All right, Really nice edition. This one is number 340 in the catalog. All right. Put it in a plastic, or not plastic, mylar coating, mylar plastic sleeve for, all right, for to protect the dust jackets. This one is beloved. Um, this this book has gained and even gained more esteem as time has gone by. It's Toni Morrison's greatest novel. It's basically about a daughter named Beloved who her mother is a black slave, and she thought that um, her daughter died at birth, and she comes back later or whatever. But you could argue, and nobody would give you a second thought or a second, a weird look or whatever. You could argue that this may be the United States' greatest modern or 20th century novel. All right, up there with all of them, all the novels that you can think of by great American authors. An extremely, extremely good book. If you have not read this, read this, Beloved by Toni Morrison. All right, and this one is numbered 268 in the collection. All right, and I also found this one, another huge tome like War and Peace. This one's called The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. All right. So Dumas wrote this. This is a modern translation. They translated it even more from an English translation, a previous English translation for this edition. And I don't know if you read this, but it was just like the ultimate revenge novel, basically, right? Edmond Dante is wrongfully imprisoned for life, and then he escapes, and then he goes after the people that wrongfully put him there. All right, so extremely good book if you like really long books. I'm not a huge fan of very big books, but um, they are part of literature, even though some look at them as the bane of literature. Like James Joyce Ulysses or War and Peace or this one by Dumas. Just such long novels, right? So, but this one is what number is this in the library? 320, number 320 in the library. All right, so if you can look, see how nice these editions are. If you were to put them in a display cabinet or on bookshelves in your den or living room, right? They look really nice. You have a whole line of them. They're all uniform looking. Titles are really nice as well. So those are three of the Everyman libraries I'm going to add to my collection. Here's a modern library giant, the old ones before the new ones came out. All right, this one is G85, Great Ages and Ideas of the Jewish People. It just goes through the history of Judaism. Brilliant searching interpretation by 6 historians of the 4,000-year civilization of the Jewish people. All right, so, and you'll be surprised at what you'll read in a lot of them. Maybe you won't be. But this had a sticker on it right there. And notice how you take the sticker off, even if you use, like lighter fluid to loosen the stickiness on it and pull it off. Just pulled off part of the cover just to get rid of the stickers. That's why I detest book book salesmen who put stickers on older books to price them, right? On newer books, like on something like this, the dust jacket still has that sheen to it, that coating that makes it shiny, and you can usually just pull the sticker off very easily. And if not, you just put a bit of lighter fluid on it and wait like 30 seconds, and then just peel the thing off really easily. It doesn't really do anything, and then the lighter fluid will just evaporate, right? Doesn't do any damage, right? But on older books where the dust jackets are more raw, less, you can feel the paper more on it than the sheen that was on it that's come off over the years. You put a sticker on that, you take that sticker off, you're going to rip a piece of the dust jacket, right? You just can't avoid it, but you can't have that frequency. See, this one I just decided not to remove because I knew how much damage it would make on the book that little one that's been there since it was sold new, right? So this isn't a new book. All right. So this is part of the Giant series. So Modern Library started in what, the 1920s? Sorry, yeah, the Modern Library. Like paperback sized hardcover books sold for a reasonably cheap price, so that everybody can read and enjoy all the classics, right? They were like in direct competition with the Everyman Library out of the UK or whatever, right? They started it. A couple of Americans started it because they thought that the Everyman Library was too UK centric. There wasn't enough American stuff in it, so they decided to start the Modern Library and put out like over 800 titles. But just some of the books that they wanted to put out, you couldn't put out in a reasonably small um, book unless you did it in 2 or 3 volumes. So what they did was they thought of Modern Library giants, and you got about 100 of these giants, the larger regular sized hardcover books. They put out about 100 volumes of these, just over 100 if I remember correct. All right, so that's great ages and ideas of the Jewish people, the Modern Library. All right, and here's another Everyman. All right, and this is F. Scott Fitzgerald's This Side of Paradise, his first novel. He wrote it when he was like in his early 20s, if I remember correctly. Um, and I have not read it, so, but I'm not sure why I haven't read it. I just didn't get around to reading it. But this one is number 227 in the library. It has a best wishes type of person wrote best wishes with their name on it. So this was a gift book. And guess what? The person bought it for and gave it, read it probably, and now gave it to Goodwill, and now I have it. All right. And it has that writing on the inside of it. So I don't know why people do that. It just damages the book. I won't put the person's name, but they put December 1996 on it. I don't know if you can see that or not on the inside. Right? You see that writing? It just wrecks it. Why do that? If you want to do that, why not just take a bookmark? Everybody wants a bookmark with their book, anyways, right? Get the bookmark from the bookstore that you bought it off of, and take the bookmark. And a lot of the bookmarks are um, are meant to do that. Put a message on it, right? And write your message on that. Put the bookmark inside the book, right? And now the book is in perfect condition, and I didn't just wreck it by putting writing on it. Now, what they didn't do, which is cool, is they did not price clip it, so you still have the pricing on the inside of it, right? So that's always good. For example, here's another. Here's I was just speaking about the Modern Library. Here's what the Modern Libraries kind of looked like back in the day. See the size of a paperback. Give me a paperback here. So there's a paperback, and there's a Modern Library. All right, a little bit bigger than a paperback, right? But about the same size, right? Um, you can carry it around easily and read. That was the point. And because it's small, it's a lot cheaper to make, so you could put it at a lower price for everybody to enjoy, right? Um, and so this is Johnson's Dictionary Modern Selection, right? Uh, so this one is numbered 355 in the collection, all right? So I think there's like just under 400 something numbered, but what they did was whenever a book would go out of print and they weren't going to print it again, they would take that number and give it to the next title that they were going to add to the library. So you'll have multiple titles with the same number. So they only got up to 400 and something in the numbering situation, but volumes that are in the 800, there's over 800 volumes of the Modern Library, but they're just a little bit more difficult to collect, but not totally difficult to collect, because on many of the Modern Libraries dust jackets, you open it up, and on the opposite side is a printing of all the books in the library, right? So you can use that as a guide. Right, so that's number 355 of the Modern Library. But notice, see right there, it's been clipped, price clip. They priced it because it's probably a gift from somebody. Somebody bought it for somebody else. They didn't want that person to know how much the book was. So they price clipped it so they wouldn't see the price on it, right? So if the person is an avid reader and reads books, they're going to know what the price of this was at the time, right? I know that this, without even looking at it, this is probably in the $15 range. This book, if I look back, there you go, Canada, $15, right? So it's not difficult. Um, Sometimes they'll price clip it so that you can't see the price, or sometimes booksellers, what they'll do is they'll take a magic marker and mark out the price, but leave the corner there. Just mark out the price with a marker, which also wrecks the price of the book over time, right? So you're the owner of the book while you own it, but you're not going to keep it for the rest of the book's life. It's going to go through multiple ownerships. So why not be more of a custodian and protect and collect your books properly, quote unquote properly, right? All right. So again, here's a different one. It has a different spine than a lot of the Everyman libraries, but they all, when you put them on the shelf, man, they really look nice. All right. All right. So that's that. Anything else? Did that. I have more books here and more movies and everything, but I think that'll be it. Oh, I'll do this one, last one. All right. So a lot of times when I'm talking like in the history of music or history of other things, I don't have an example to show you guys. Um, if you're my age, you know what I'm talking about. You don't need to see something. But if, let's say, you're young, maybe you're 20 or something, and I'm talking about, you know, let's say cylinder rolls for music. Those cylinder rolls. I don't know. But if I had an actual machine that played the cylinder rolls and the cylinders, I would show you them. Right. That was the start of recorded music. Right. But then when when LPs started to come out, and they wanted something that would be easily to transport around, something you could play in your car, right? So they invented something called an 8-track tape, which is basically, the precursor of the cassette tape. Everybody knows what cassette tape is. Do you know what a cassette tape is? I'm assuming you do. I'll show it to you if you don't. All right. And then, but before that, when you're playing music in your car, you either listen to the radio, or you had an 8-track, and you had 8-track tapes, and you would keep them in your car. Now they're big and bulky compared to, let's say, a CD nowadays, um, but they're basically the precursor of the cassette tape. And this is what they look like, right? So they're like rectangular, all right? And there's the tape there, and you just take it and you go pew, into the 8-track tape player in your car or at home. They are part of the stereo system, right? You could play a record on top, and then on the side you'd have the radio, and then you'd have a place where you could pop this into the right. But mostly these were really popular with people that like to listen to music in their car. And, they'd have a bunch of these. There was like cases that you put in, and you'd have a whole line of them, a whole line of them, right? And you just pop it in, right? So the problem with these, this type of recorded tape is that they'll get eaten by the player sometimes, or you know over multiple plays it'll get quieter and more staticky, right? So like all things are, and over time I don't even know if this would actually play if there was an 8-track player around that I could use. I don't even know if it would play, but I thought, hey, I saw this at a thrift shop, and I said, okay, I'm going to buy one of them. All right, and this is Billy Joel's "The Stranger." All right, one of his best albums. All right, uh, this is the one that has "Just the Way You Are," "Moving Out," you know, "Only the Good Die Young," and so on and so forth. He has so many really good hits. But I mean, Billy Joel is a perfect example of somebody that, rather than collect all of his get his greatest hits collection, which is 2 volumes, and you have all of his great music, right? So he's perfect for that. But I thought I'd pick this up so that in future, if I'm talking about the history of music, something that I mentioned, an 8-track or some nostalgia thing brings me back to a time when I was a kid, and my mom or her boyfriend was listening to music, and they listened to an 8-track. I could show you the 8-track and what it looks like, right? So anyway, so I picked that up. So I guess that's everything. I could show more stuff, but I like to watch it or listen to it before I do that. And lots of stuff, always more and more stuff. Crazy. all basically free because I just resell stuff, right? So, and buy stuff that I want. Um, all right, so that's everything, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. No pressure, but I would appreciate it. And I'll see you in my next video, which should be soon. And you have a great day. Bye for now.